Hello and welcome to the 12th video in the Project Sovereign series. In this video I'll model the main shuttle bay. There's a lot of detailing in this part of the ship, so let's get started. So before actually getting started on refining the shuttle bay area, I had to make a few changes to the model. I added some more armor plating back here that I missed, and also I had to fill in this area. Now this isn't 100% screen accurate, but I'm really at a spot in the process where I can't really go back and change it, so I'm just going to have to deal with it. It's a very minor detail. I'm not going to get too hung up on it, but now at least I'm ready to carve out the main shuttle bay area, which should be relatively easy. I'm going to be using the same method of using blanks to do an imprint boolean. You're going to see that quite a bit on this model. So without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so it was just a simple making the blanks and imprint booleaning them out. I didn't bother showing it because I've shown it so many times before in this video. You get the idea. So it just created these simple shapes. I'm just got to clean up these edges that are superfluous. It's not going to be a big deal at all. And then I think I'm just going to extrude these in and then recreate the surface to create this sort of grill area for the, I guess, the door louvers or something. So that should be a pretty straightforward operation too. I kept this middle one as just one large door. It's kind of difficult to find real shots of the real model of this part of the shuttle bay doors, but I figure since it's just one big door in this shot anyway, this is the CG model, by the way. Since it's just one big door for the shuttle, I'm just going to keep it as one big door on my model and just keep these as 3 separate doors. So yeah, it's just going to be basically cleaning up and extruding, and I still got to figure out exactly how I'm going to do the door louvers, but it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Okay, so that was reasonably painless. I was able to erase the lines and extrude the surfaces without too much hassle. So on to move to the next phase, which is going to be the grates or the louvers that denote, I guess, the flexibility of the garage doors, just like in real life. You'll see I also created just a generic dark gray material just to help visually delineate. It's also going to help to select the polygons by giving them polygon IDs, and I will show you that in just a bit. Okay, so what I was talking about before is I want to select these polygons, these gray ones, because I want to start working on these doors. So I could sit here clicking through, but that would take forever. So the only thing I really need to do, in case you don't know about this trick, it's a pretty good one. I don't know if it's so much of a trick, but just a better way of doing something. But you can select the polygon and see how it says set ID to, select ID to. You just click select ID, and there you go. So all I'm going to do now is just duplicate them, because clone to element, because what I want to do is I want to make these, you know, these edges, these sort of grooves for the panels of the doors, but the problem is that these aren't evenly spaced, right? They get very narrow and then they get very wide. I want them to be uniformly spaced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase these horizontal lines and I'm going to create new ones so that I will be able to do that more easily. So I'll just isolate the selection just to make it a bit easier to work on. Okay, so as I was selecting these, you probably noticed that the gizmo is not over on the edges, and this is a really good thing to point out because sometimes when you're selecting, you'll select something wrong. So all you have to do is just do a blanket deselect. There we go. Now I know that these edges are selected because I certainly don't want to delete them only to find out that I've deleted, you know, half the edges on the other side of the ship. So just a good tip in order to do that too. Now all I'm going to do is connect these as evenly as I can, and hopefully I can do it in such a way that's easy to duplicate across the rest of the doors. Okay, now it's time for the fun part. You can see I've recreated my edge segments to be evenly spaced, and I have chamfered them so as to create the gaps necessary for the shuttle bay doors to articulate, I guess. Of course, they're not going to actually open in this model, but it's supposed to make it look like it does. So oddly satisfying, but here we go. Extrude. And negative 0.1 meters. I think it's going to be good. And if anything, if I have to push this further back, it's just going to blend in. You'll see what I mean when I get to that stage. But this should pretty much do it. So now I'll just repeat it for the rest of the doors. And we'll be done with this part of the project. All right, so the garage doors are done. Everything's been put into place. Looks articulated enough. So yeah, that's going to be basically it for this stage of the project. And we'll do the control tower here next. Okay, so I started the little block extrusions on the control tower at the shuttle bay. This was just the basic Boolean and extrude procedure. For this one, I simply moved the vertices to conform to the shape because I didn't really feel the Boolean was necessary. But before I cut it out, I realized something. These polygons that'll have to be extruded to become the window bay sort of mesh up with this piece, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So right here, and this is the physical model, you can see how there's like a little lip that extrudes out, and it sort of juts down here, and it sort of juts down here. So before extruding this block, I needed to make sure to take that into account. So just one of the many kind of procedural things that you need to do. Just really check all of your reference before you perform an operation like this, because it's much more difficult to change it down the line. So something else I noticed, this little area is full of surprises. I was just about to extrude my window bay out when I realized that, I don't know if you can see it, but the windows don't conform diagonally like they would if I just extruded them. They're actually straight up and down, but they curve like this along the curvature of the top of the control tower, if that makes any sense. This isn't a compound curve. So it's going to make the operation a bit more difficult. So for instance, if I extrude this, let's give it an arbitrary negative amount. I'm going to have to move it anyway. So I can do that. Just to kind of visually make sure it's straight up and down. So you can see it's still curving, and it's tilted back too, but I want it to curve like this, but I don't want it to tilt back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this far back, since I'm going to make an interior for this anyway. I'm going to push it. I think that's probably pretty good. Then I can just smash this down so it becomes a flat wall. Again, this curve, so I can't use this surface as the glass because I don't want it to be flat like that. So all I'll have to do is create a plane that conforms to this, which shouldn't be too difficult. Just give it a lot of vertical segments. That's probably good. It doesn't need to be any more defined than this. Move it in place. Go out there. That's probably good. Make it the correct size. Just so it fits into place. Doesn't need to be too precise. Looks like I'll have to mess with this lower area. Not a problem. Get our friendly FFD modifier out. Something like that. Do another one. And simply push it out. I'll have to lower it down a little bit. But you get the idea. So this will be a nice flat, flat top to bottom, but curved side to side window plane. And that should be pretty much all I need in order to be able to do this. So next I'm just going to create the sort of grading here, the reinforcement, I guess, and add a few more details, and that'll be that. Okay, so I did the usual Boolean imprint trick to create these rafter enforcement parts for the control tower window. I also created these more subtle sort of touches, these panels that are located near here. I'm not sure what they're for, probably access panels. And these tiny panels that will one day be painted red. I guess they're, don't hit the side of the door indicators or something like that. But that's pretty much going to do it for modeling the main shuttle bay. So moving on, I'm going to begin work on the top of the saucer and just basically make my way down the model until all the modeling is finished. Then we'll get to work on the texturing, which should be a lot of fun. So be sure to stick around, and I will see you soon.